From the center of the universe, now in its 7th season covering your 19-time Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts, it's the X's and Argos podcast with Argos color analyst Ben Grant and Coach JB.
Welcome to the X's and Argos postgame reaction podcast brought to you by Something in the Water Brewing. Ben Grant, joined as always by JB. And this one, JB, is yet another painful loss, one that the Argos had a chance to come away with, ended up falling short. The BC Lions win 27-22. A lot of things went wrong for the Argos. They didn't get any help from the replay center for the second week in a row, but they have themselves to blame, I think, more than anything else tonight, with just the inability to take advantage of Nathan Rourke's interceptions and their poor blocking up front for Nick Arbuckle. So we'll get into all that. We'll break it all down. But before we do, I want to tell you about Something in the Water Brewing, because it is well after midnight Eastern Standard Time. And so this is the day of the grand reopening of Something in the Water Brewing with Ghost Taco up and operational. And so if you want to drop by Something in the Water Brewing in Liberty Village, you've got to give this a chance. It is now the best tacos in the city to go along with the best beer in the city. If you haven't tried Longbow yet, you've got to try it out. It's the beer that was made for you, for fans of the Double Blue. They've also got all sorts of great stuff that they're always brewing. One right now that they've got, you got to try out, is called All My Life I Wanted to Be Rich. It's a 7.4% hop-saturated ale. Huge, hazy, double IPA with more hops than they have ever used before in a beer. And so if you're into hoppy beers, you got to check that one out. But don't forget about Longboat, and don't forget about those Ghost Tacos. Before we get into all the breakdowns and everything else, let's hear the radio replays from today's game. Here's Mike Hogan on the call from our broadcast booth in TSN 1050.
The Lions go hurry up, and Rourke rolls to his right, throws long, looking end zone, picked off at the 1 yard line. Ben's man, Willie Drew, with the pick at the 1 yard line, and the Argos turn it over from the 53 yard line. 5-man rush, Rourke over the middle, and it is picked off. Benji's got it, 40, 45, 50, still on his feet to midfield. Franklin had a pick 6 against the Lions when they met in week 12 from 57 yards. That is pick number 4 for Benji Franklin. 2nd and 8, back to passes Rourke, throws it, and it is tipped and picked. Sluka got it. He pitches it back to McFadden down to the 53 yard line. And with 14 seconds left, the Argos are very close to field goal range. And for Derek Sluka, that is pick number 3 this season. 2nd down for the Lions. They need almost 6 yards. It's from the 24. Rourke now under pressure, and he spins off Parrish, but doesn't get away from the second one, as Casey will come up and get the sack back at the 39 yard line. As for Aaron Casey, that is his 5th sack of the season as we hit the 3-minute warning. From the 22 yard line, it's an Argo first down with 6:45 left. 4-man rush. Arbuckle swings it out into the flat. It's Brown to the 20, to the 15, to the 10, to the 5, to the 2 yard line. Spencer Brown with his biggest play of the game, and the Argos are knocking at the door, needing the touchdown. Now they're back to the 7 yard line, 1st and goal. Arbuckle throws to the end zone, touchdown. Mackay Polk with the grab, and the Argos are back in this thing. It's 27-21 with the extra point to come with 5:55 left in the 4th.
Okay, JB, you saw it. You heard it. What do you make of today's game, this 27-22 loss? It seemed like the defense did their part, and yet they end up on the wrong side of the win-loss column yet again.
Yeah, this is going to be a bit of a hot take, but the Argos are not a playoff team. They're just not that good. They're not terrible. They're not a bad team, but they're not a good team. I would say if they had caught a couple breaks, they're probably close to a 500 team. And that's who they are. I don't think it's bad luck or, it's a team that has a couple of good players, a lot of players who are just okay, and they just don't execute with the kind of precision that you need to be a playoff or a championship contender. They've essentially played some version of this game every game. So it, it's hard to get too upset because this is who they are.
That's the thing. It's not a new story, and I think that I think that observation is astute. Like this, it feels like we've seen this game already. This felt like two different games against the Montreal Alouettes. It felt a little bit like some of their wins even as well. This was largely what that win against the Hamilton Tiger Cats felt like until the last second, or the win against the Edmonton Elks felt a little bit like this to the last second. Some of them they've come away with, but more times than not, it's come down to this position, and they haven't been able to get it done. They've been something short. And tonight, it could have been a big punt return or kick return, and those just weren't there. It could have been doing something with the turnovers they got. Because you look at the stats here, and if I told you pregame that Nathan Rourke would be 16 of 24 for 235 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 picks, you'd say, yeah, I'll take that in a heartbeat. That's an Argos win. And yet they weren't able to turn those opportunities into points. I think they only ended up with 3 points off those 3 picks. And that's just not good enough. Like when you're playing against the BC Lions, you would think holding them to 27 points would also be a big win. And Toronto's been scoring over 30 points a game. They couldn't score that tonight. That would have done it. They only end up with 22. And then how about at the end of the game, like the guy that you trust the most to make a tackle, Wyndham McManus has Nathan Rourke stuffed for a third down stop. And he somehow is able to slip out of Winton's grip. That never happens. Like when he doesn't miss tackles, and he certainly doesn't miss tackles against quarterbacks. And somehow, just on this night when they needed that stop, he slipped out of Winton's grip and fell forward for the first down. And that was yet another painful play to watch.
Yeah, it was. It's frustrating. I mean, I think it's encouraging in the sense that this is not a team in need of a rebuild. It's just simply a team that needs more talent injected into it. And then I think they're right back at it because it is a decent team. This isn't like Edmonton last year or Ottawa in the past. But it needs a few more playmakers, and it needs the level, the level of player to be raised because there's a reason some guys get paid a lot and some guys don't, and players who make plays to win games get paid more. And right now the team is absent, which is a result of winning championships. I mean, that's what happens. It's very difficult to remain at the top because you have to pay players. And bluntly, if your top paid player doesn't play the whole season, that really leaves you in a cap hell.
Yeah, that's obviously a huge difference on the season. But you look at this team top to bottom, even as they're constructed now. I don't think Winnipeg's a better team than this Toronto Argonauts team, but they just dug themselves such a hole in the beginning that they weren't able to get into the mix early enough. And now they're in a position where they'll need to not only win out, but they need Winnipeg to go 1-3, fall in their face. And Winnipeg has found ways to win games like this. Like you look at Winnipeg's win last week that we keep talking about, where they have 3 completed passes and yet find a way to get enough stuff done where they can come away with a victory. Toronto just hasn't had that ability, and yeah, that's cost them.
Yeah, you look at, obviously the running game is a bit of a apocalyptic wasteland, and while you don't have to have a great running game to be a great team, clearly with the running back getting hurt early in the year, that's been a huge issue. Like that has to be, I think to be honest, I'm already kind of transitioning into next year conversation. I mean, that obviously has to be addressed. You look at the defensive line, BC was able to get pressure with 3 and 4-man rushes. Obviously the defensive line, which was sort of ravaged in the off season, needs to be beefed up. I think if you do those two things, and you get Chad Kelly back, I think you're right back to being quite a good team. But this team right now is, so, they're still fine to watch. They're competitive. They can go punch for punch with most teams. But like any sort of 500 team, they're not going to come up with the big play at the end, because that's not what 500 teams do.
Yeah, it's frustrating because I think, like, again, like you said, like, they can lose by a field goal to anybody. That's
Right. They're not a terrible team. They're
Right.
not a good team. So whatever that is in the middle, they are a mediocre team.
I was really concerned by the offensive line play today, and I know they were in tough because Brendan Kemp went down fairly early. He was nursing an injury throughout the week this week, wasn't able to go full in practice until the end of the week. And when he came out, it's not like it was going very well before that, but it certainly took a dive. And so instead, with Kemp out at the left tackle spot, you had Ryan Hunter bounce over to the left tackle spot. John Boss shifted over from right guard to right tackle, and Darius Sirocco came in initially at the right guard spot. And they struggled. And what BC did at that point was they backed off. And so they were sending 3, sending 4, and daring Toronto to run the football, and they still couldn't. Even against that 3-man line, they couldn't generate any run. And when you have to pass against a 3-man rush that is actually generating pressure, you're done. There's nothing you can do. And they just sat 9 guys back at the sticks.
And finally, somebody enacted, my OCDC.
Yeah, that's what they did. Exactly that. You've been calling for that same style of defense for the opposition for like 8 weeks now, and this is the first time we've seen somebody do it. The other tweak I thought was interesting. They did this for, I think, just one series, maybe 2, where they sent a 3-man rush and they actually spied Arbuckle, not with the purpose of keeping him from running, but from keeping him from stepping up in the pocket. So they'd send 3 that would go after pretty aggressively, and Arbuckle typically there would step up in the pocket, look to make a play. That's when the spy would fire, and it caused trouble. They ended up not staying on the field very long with that defensive look. They didn't stick with it. They switched. They went back to their 4-man rush after that, but it was effective. Funny enough, the most success the Argos saw tonight, I thought, was when BC blitzed, which I just didn't know why they changed to that. I don't know why they adjusted from what they were doing. That 3- and 4-man look was doing everything they needed to and more. But their touchdown drive was on that on the drive where they were sending heat.
Yeah, Arbuckle was okay tonight. He wasn't at the level we've seen him in other games. He was okay. Obviously, the fumble at the end, you can debate. I think I agree with you. I would have called that a forward pass. Maybe I'm giving too much credit. I feel like if they had ruled it a forward pass, it would have stayed that call.
It would have. It had
the
to
replay
have.
booth. I feel like, had it been flipped, they would have stayed with it on the field. I can at least objectively, entertain the argument that there was not enough there to turn over the call on the field. But the offensive line, of course, look, Betts ate them up.
Yeah,
he
Betts had a
destroyed the
huge
game for them. He was fired out of a cannon all night. They just did not have the talent to deal with them. Like they didn't really have anybody who could, maybe they should have chipped him more. There seemed to be one sack, like definitely where the offensive lineman seemed to feel like there was going to be a chip there. It did not drop into a pass set very quickly. Look, the offensive line got eaten up. Boss obviously was out of his depth and, was kind of drowning and pulling down penalty flags into the bottom of the lake. The Argos are leading the league in penalties. I don't think that's necessarily a lack of discipline. Like the coaches are just letting the players do whatever they want. I don't think anybody would suggest Coach Dinwiddie is running a loosey-goosey operation. I just think the penalties are a result of players playing out of their depth. And when players are not as talented as you need, they're going to have more penalties because they're competing against people who are better than them. and often that will cause a penalty. And then you also have in the mix, players who are not as good, don't have the laser focus needed to be a great player. And I do think it's more about the personnel than it is about the coaching staff.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. And yeah, like you said, John Boss with 6 penalties tonight, I believe. That was a tough night for him. But again, playing a position that he wasn't expecting to play tonight.
No, exactly. I'm not killing him. Like, he
to
was
go
out
up against
of his depth.
Betts. And then Hunter on the other side, he hasn't played that side. Again, he's not repping at left tackle at all. He's just got himself back on the field a few weeks ago, and he's playing that right tackle spot. Suddenly he's put over to the left side. You've got Boss, who hasn't taken tackle reps recently either, and they're both going up against Matthew Betts. That is not a recipe for success. So that certainly didn't make it easy. But the penalties certainly were an issue. They erased a couple points early for the Argos. They had that first and goal from the 7.
Killed them. Boss. Honestly, Boss. I don't want to harp on it too much because he was. He wasn't playing where he should be playing, but like he almost single-handedly sank them. Like, if Betts was a torpedo through one side of the boat, Boss was like a large explosion on the other side of the boat. It was, he wasn't just taking penalties; he was taking them at the world's worst time.
And the timing of every Argos penalty tonight,
field goal killer. Yeah, look, I just think that's where the penalties are coming from. Like, the coaching staff. There's nobody who knows the coaching staff who would suggest that they are not holding a high bar or demanding precision or demanding intelligence of their players. I just think that, like Boss, like when you're going up against guys who are better than you, you're going to end up having penalties. It's, so I think it's more a factor of that. The offense couldn't really get going because the offensive line, was a problem. Betts really ate them up all game.
You can't function offensively if you can't run against the 3 and 4 man rush. That's basically what it comes down to. And you said you weren't that impressed with Arbuckle's game. I just don't know. I don't know what else he could have really done. There wasn't anything downfield at all. Like, he had to keep checking it down. It's either like I either get sacked or I throw a pick or I throw this 3-yard pass to my running back. Those were sort of the 3 things he had to choose from. So he would. That's why Spencer Brown had 9 targets, 7 catches, because that's what BC was giving. And the way to take advantage of that style of defense is you got to be able to run the football, and they simply couldn't.
Yeah, I thought defensively. No, I think that's a fair assessment of Arbuckle. I thought the defense played okay. They definitely made. They had the interceptions, which were great, and they didn't let Butler run all over them. I thought the defense played well enough to win.
They did. 27 points should be a win against the Lions.
A couple big busts, right? We were hoping for, or I certainly was hoping for, no big plays over 30. Couple big plays, couple of busts really hurt. In terms of trying to keep BC, because Rourke was not feeling it tonight.
No, he didn't play well.
Those big plays really kind of let him off the hook. Because he is a guy who will kind of melt down a little bit.
He was hard to tackle tonight. Like, that's where he was most really dangerous. Was I don't know why they couldn't, like, not just that quarterback sneak where Winton, like, oh man, he tracked him so beautifully when he just scraped down the line and wrapped him up so perfectly. I still can't believe Nathan Rourke got out of that Wyndham McManus tackle. But it wasn't just that one. He made guys miss all over the field. It was DBs, it was DNs, it was everybody. He just seemed to be able to shake them and then get forward for a positive gain. I thought the Toronto D-line was better tonight than I've seen them in a while. They had pressure. It just didn't generate sacks. They missed him. Like, Parrish had one where he had Rourke wrapped up and somehow slid off him, and Rourke was able to escape. There were a few like that where they had penetration. They just couldn't finish the play. And, that's the difference between teams that win and teams that lose. The teams that win are able to finish those plays, and the teams that lose end up thinking about them all night.
Yeah. Exactly. This was very much a a microcosm or a snapshot of the season, where there are things they do well, and then there are things that they don't do well. And when it comes to fourth quarter execution, the precision is not there. I have experienced this with other sporting teams that I cheer for. So I've seen this dynamic where it's just one of those things where you don't have it. And so now the talent, now I would say the final games are really about deciding who stays and who goes.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of that decision making. You're as long as you're mathematically alive, you don't take your foot off the gas. But I think you are certainly watching to see what happens here. The reason I say that is because I don't trust Winnipeg to win games. I also don't trust them to lose games. I have no idea what they're going to do. They're a coin flip every time they go out in the field, and that's really the only team. Like, for anyone still hanging on to Argos' playoff hopes at this point, what it takes for them is Toronto has to win out, Winnipeg has to go 1-3, or Toronto, if they go 1-2 or 2-1 over the last two, then Winnipeg just has to lose their last four. I don't see either of those things happening. I don't see any of those things happening. Toronto winning their last three is going to be super tough, but Winnipeg even going 1-3 at this point, I just think is such a stretch. That's why they needed this one so badly in BC tonight. And the frustration is because it was there. Because this is as well as anyone has played defensively against the Lions for weeks, months at this point. They've been scoring over 30 points for what seems like forever. I think you got to go back to early August to find the last time that BC didn't score over 30 points. I'm just looking back at their tallies right here to see when that was. It was back in week 7. They lost 33-27 to Saskatchewan, and everything since then has just been 30 points or more.
It was generally a good performance. I thought specials were fine. You would like to have had a little more from the return game, but I thought specials were fine. They didn't let up big stuff. I thought the defense was pretty good. Obviously, you're a couple of picks. You're keeping him under 300. You keep the running back under 100. Those are good. Those are good results. You just have to be able to run the ball. You have to be able to run the ball, and you can't play a season without a running back. I think that's what's become apparent.
I think I don't know if it would have mattered, honestly, down the stretch. I believe Mayan Williams to be the most skilled running back on the roster, and we saw in his limited time he could really run the football, but we didn't get to see it over a long stretch, and I don't know how long that would have carried out. This team just hasn't shown they're able to run block this year. I just haven't seen it from them all season, starting with the very first week of the season where the Argos had a handful of rushing yards. This group has not been able to run block, and I don't think it matters who's in your backfield if you can't.
Well, I think it's a bit of both. I don't. I think you certainly would like to have somebody in the backfield with more, more status or stature than they've had since Williams went down.
Yeah.
McMahon is nice, but he's a change of pace guy. He ran inside tonight and paid the price for it. But I agree, the offensive line has not had a great year. It just has not gelled. It hasn't gone well. That is another area I would say, if you're looking at areas that you need to kind of look at in the offseason, I do think offensive line and defensive line are the two areas that need to have some more talent injected in there.
And I think offensive line is the harder one to find.
Oof, hard.
You can find defensive linemen. It's not like it's easy, but you can find those guys. Finding offensive linemen is it's not easy for anyone.
What does the draft look like right now? Where would the Argos be? Are they second worst in the league?
No, they'd be picking.
Are they above
third?
Ottawa?
They're above Ottawa. They're above Edmonton.
Edmonton?
Yeah.
How much were they above Ottawa?
Let's see. Let's take a look at this right now. So they're a game. They're game. I know, game ahead of Ottawa, and they've got the tiebreaker. So I just don't see that happening. And Ottawa's got back-to-back with Montreal coming up, and they are tied with Edmonton, but also have that tiebreaker.
Yeah, that's not. Well, I guess third overall is fine to pick. Maybe.
I can't believe you're draft talking here in September. I know that that's the state that we're in right now, but I'm not going to tolerate any more draft talk right now. To conclude, so we'll sort of wrap up some of the things we saw here today. We've talked about penalties. We've talked about the inability to run the football. Why couldn't they get Mackay Polk going? I don't know what was going on with Arbuckle and Polk. I know that Polk wasn't like Arbuckle's guy. That was, Polk's success last year. I was all Chad Kelly. Or mostly Chad Kelly. Polk had 6 targets today, 1 catch for 7 yards and a touchdown, and it was close, like 1 foot in to touchdown. How does Mackay Polk on a game like this, where you so badly need a big play guy, and that is Mackay Polk, how do you end up with him only getting 1 catch for 7 yards, even if it was for a touchdown?
Yeah, it is. I think it is a real thing. The relationship between a quarterback and a receiver, and like some partnerships have this incredible charisma and connection, and then others don't. I think that's real. He obviously has found receivers that he loves throwing to Mital, and he loves throwing to Herslow.
And those were the 2 guys that were on. Those were the 2 guys getting reps with him last year. Like when he was down to the
and
third string.
It's pretty tough to love more than 2 targets. Like you can't. There's just not enough targets in a game to love 3 guys. So I think he has the 2 guys he loves, and he doesn't have the same connection with Polk. I think that's pretty clear. In the same way that like Chad and Polk immediately, had this fantastic connection.
Yeah, and Herslow ended up with 11 targets, 10 catches for 104 yards. Kevin Mital, 8 targets, 8 catches, 83 yards. Like those guys were all over the place tonight. And then Spencer Brown is next with 9 targets. He was the second most targeted player tonight, but that just shows you what the BC Lions were giving Nick Arbuckle and the Argonauts. That was, frustrating. I'm sure Nick Arbuckle left that game very frustrated with his experience tonight. Special teams wise, a couple of great.
How about Hajrullahu? What a game!
Yeah, like I was gonna say, like 2 50-yard field goals, 5 for 5 on field goals. One of which I have so much respect for. It was that first 50-yarder. I didn't see why, but the snap and hold, something in there wasn't clean. And Hajrullahu didn't, there was no flinch or anything, because of course there can't be, but that's easier said than done. Like when you as a field goal kicker are approaching your kick and the hold's not there.
You need a perfect operation to hit a field goal over 30 yards.
And I give so much credit, well, first of all, to Haggerty to be able to recover and get that ball placed, but for Hajrullahu to like pretend it wasn't happening and just to faithfully swing his leg through and hope he's not going to Charlie Brown onto his back.
He kept the game from becoming a laugher. He did everything you could hope for, and they're right there. If they don't get that fumble at the end, they very easily could have, much like other losses, they could have won this game. I think that's part of the frustrating part. I guess on the plus side, I think I'm fairly conditioned this season to not expect them to win it. So I wouldn't say that it was heartbreaking when he fumbled at the end, more expected.
They've become less and less heartbreaking as there have been more of them. There's certainly a desensitization process that Argos fans have had to endure, because this should feel heartbreaking. This loss should feel heartbreaking, and instead it just feels like, another one of these. And that's not quite the same thing, and I don't think that's necessarily better either. But great play from the defense tonight. Special teams doing their thing. I think I agree with you. There could have been a few more returns. A couple of nice hits. Jack Cassar just absolutely leveled someone on a kickoff return. I don't remember who that player was. I don't think it was Seven McGee. But that was one of the biggest hits of the night. But to me, the story is penalties, offensive line. I think that was the difference in this one, and just couldn't get enough done. Moving forward, the Argos play the Hamilton Tiger Cats this coming Saturday. We'll get you set for that during our pregame walkthrough midweek. This is a 3 o'clock start as the final Argos home game of the season. No matter what happens, it is going to be the final game at BMO Field for this season. So make sure you're out to that one. It's a 3 o'clock start. Argos hosting the Hamilton Ticats, who they're in a position where if they can beat the Winnipeg Blue Bombers tomorrow, they basically have wrapped things up. Then at that point, close to. So. We'll see if they can take care of business and help out the Argos with a win over the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. But so far this season, anytime the Argos have needed help from another team, they haven't come through. So if you're into gambling, I would suggest that it would be almost a guaranteed play to pick the Winnipeg Blue Bombers tomorrow, even though obviously I know that's horrible advice, but that's the way it's gone for the Argos this season. They need Calgary to win a game, they lose it. They need Ottawa to beat Winnipeg. They allow only 3 completed passes, but they still lose it. It just hasn't been there. That's just how it has gone this season. Any final words, JB, before we wrap this one up?
I thought it was a pretty good performance on the road in BC. That's a hard place to win on the road for an Eastern team. I thought that they were ready and they were prepared. They just need a few more players.
Yeah, you wonder, like, it's impossible to say, but like a healthy Brendan Kemp, did the Argos win this game? Like maybe that would have been all it took, because he didn't look 100% out there tonight. Like that sack that you talk about where it looked like he was expecting a chip, I just don't think he could get back there. It looked like he was expecting Arbuckle to take a short drop instead of a deep drop, but I think it was just
he looked like he was expecting a number of things.
Yeah, but I just don't think he had the mobility. And against Betts, that's just I don't know what else you do. They've been banged up to say the least. You have to. I think you just have to take it in stride and rebuild and reconstruct for next year. The final score from this one, 27-22, BC Lions over your Toronto Argonauts. That will just about do it for us on this post-game reaction episode of the X's and Argos podcast. For JB, this is Ben Grant saying so long, and may all your pre-snap reads be good ones. I'll see ya.